Canada scores a major soccer victory tonight, defying the odds against Venezuela.
Imagine Canada in the Copa América semifinals. You'd never hear about that.
And the stunning rise of Canada's soccer program. Hanging on.
Are you more frail?
No.
While U.S. President Joe Biden insists he's the only man for the job. Change in Iran?
As long as this regime is in power, there is no real reform can happen.
But can this former heart surgeon truly upset the apple cart in the Islamic Republic? Plus, LCBO on strike.
And we're going to stand with all of you, day in and day out.
The creative ways Ontarians are getting their summer spirits.
Global National. Reporting tonight, Anthony Robart.
Good evening and thank you for joining us. Well, not many dared to say this just a few days ago, but Canada's national men's soccer team is now competing with some of the world's best. They delivered a historic win last night, sparking celebrations across the country. And there you see fans from coast to coast jumping for joy as Canada punched their ticket to the Copa América semifinals. Some even taking the celebrations to the streets. Jayme Doll has our top story tonight on the jubilation surrounding Canada's men who are crushing expectations on the world stage.
There was some nail biting, fingers tapping, even perhaps a few prayers silently stammered from the edges of wooden stools in pubs across the country. And anxiety both devout and seasonal soccer fans shared as the country's team attempted something it's never done before, the Stoke high across Canada.
I felt pretty good going into this game.
Even Toronto's mayor getting in on the action.
Coming together, joining together and feeling the energy because of sports, I'm excited.
Canada and Venezuela battling it out for a chance to get to the semi-finals at Copa América. It's the first time Canada has played in the tournament.
This is a huge match for the injection of the sport across Canada. It's a unique opportunity that we get the opportunity to play in a Copa América as we see, how different it is, Copa América compared to the Euros. The Copa América is very fast-paced. It's very direct. Teams are very aggressive.
The pressure was building at AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas, Friday night. The quarterfinal match tied at 1 apiece. The drama started to soar as they headed to penalty kicks. Fans had their eyes glued, and for some, it was just too difficult to even bear.
As a fan, nothing more nerve-wracking than a game ending like that.
Imagine Canada in the Copa América semifinals. You'd never hear about that 5 years ago, so we've come a long way.
Not one, not two, but 6 rounds later, it came down to this. A moment that will have a permanent place on the highlight reels. The once underdog Canadians proving, regardless of how many times they have fallen, they deserve a place amongst the stars. And who better to be the first to congratulate them than one of the country's biggest stars.
I just want to thank you guys. That was an incredible experience for me. To see that game live, the penalty kicks was insane. Incredible. We're cheering for you guys, and that was awesome to be a part of.
Next, the team will meet the world's best, Lionel Messi and the Argentinians. One thing is certain, the team from the north will have a lot of fired-up energy behind them. Jayme Doll, Global News, Calgary.
All right, let's go straight to Global's Jay Janauer, our resident sports expert. Jay, I know this is just one match, all right, but put this in context for us. How big is this, not just that one, but the tournament as a whole, for Canada soccer, the team, but also soccer in Canada? What do you think?
Well, let's put this into perspective. Previous to last night, the biggest moment in Canadian soccer history was our women winning Olympic gold, and that was absolutely huge. But last night, with all the focus on the only North American team still alive at the Copa América, Canada delivers its best offensive output, beats Venezuela on penalty kicks at one of the oldest soccer tournaments that's ever been hosted. 1916 was the first Copa América. Canada had never played before, never made it to the knockout stage. They not only get past the knockout stage, now they're semifinal bound, and our country from coast to coast was celebrating last night, and now we turn our eyes forward to see what happens on Tuesday.
Well, that's just it. Tuesday, defending champions in the Copa America, defending World Cup champions. This is a juggernaut in Argentina. Do they have a chance? Can they compete against them?
Here's the thing. Do they have a chance? Yes. Can they compete? Most definitely. When you look at their effort against Venezuela, without a doubt, their best offensive effort. They're missing Tajon Buchanan, who suffered the fractured tibia earlier this week in the practice. They should have scored 3, maybe 4 goals against Venezuela, but now they face Argentina. Yes, Lionel Messi. Argentina, the #1 ranked team in the world. Canada, currently ranked 48th. But here's the big stat. At the Copa America, 2 countries have won 15 Copa America championships. Uruguay and Argentina. So we will see what Canada does on Tuesday.
Either way, it will be fun to watch. Thank you so much, Jay. I appreciate your insight. That is Jay Janauer joining us from Vancouver. And thousands of Canadian soccer fans glued to their screens again today to watch another major tournament, the Euros. These fans in Montreal watching as England beats Switzerland in a penalty shootout. The other quarterfinal saw the Netherlands beat Turkey. Now, the Euro semifinals also taking place on Tuesday. Well, things are heating up weather-wise and in a significant way in Western Canada this weekend. Environment Canada issuing heat warnings for most of the BC interior, with heat and smoke warnings across most of northern Alberta as well. We'll get to the temperature forecasts in a moment, but as the planet heats up from climate change, experts are warning that the kinds of activities we normally associate with summer will change as well, with many more poor air quality days and dangerous extreme heat days to come.
What we consider to be safe is anything that's consistently under 26 degrees indoors, and then the risk starts to go up as the indoor temperature starts to go up. The real danger threshold, as we define it, is 31 degrees indoors. So if you're living in an environment that's, 31 degrees or higher for day in and day out, that can be very dangerous for people who are susceptible to the heat.
And the doctor adds the dangers of overheating can present themselves suddenly, especially when people who are susceptible to heat are at home and without proper air conditioning. And there's an uncertain calm in BC among the province's Wildfire Service. It's warning that hot conditions across the province will increase the risk for wildfire activity. Now, so far, there are no major fires burning, but with those temperatures in the mid to upper 30s, the situation, of course, could change rapidly. Let's turn now to our meteorologist, Yvonne Schell. And Yvonne, temperatures expected to only get hotter over the next few days. How long do we expect this heat wave to last?
Anthony, this heat wave is expected to take us in towards Wednesday, with those temperatures soaring into the low 40s. It's all courtesy of a ridge of high pressure that's building and strengthening. Along the western half of the country, we'll see it peaking likely Wednesday. A few spots very hot, though, for Thursday. And then pushing its way towards the east will be well above the average for this time of the year. Some of the hot spots across the province for BC will be into the low 40s. And the southeastern corners of the province will see them into the upper 30s. Lytton, for example, will also be into the low 40s in comparison to the heat dome that we saw back in June. The end of June in 2021, we had record-breaking temperatures for Lytton getting up to 49.6. It'll still be hot, but not nearly as hot as what we saw in that heat dome. The southern half of the Okanagan, another area that will see temperatures into the low 40s. And then in comparison, Calgary will also be warm. Our first weekend of the Stampede and into next week, we'll see some of those temperatures into the low 30s. Anthony?
That is our global news meteorologist, Yvonne Schell. Thank you, Yvonne. And in the southern U.S., Texas is bracing for the arrival of Beryl after the storm wreaked havoc in the Caribbean and Mexico over the past week. The tropical storm expected to regain strength, becoming a hurricane again before making landfall by Monday. It will weaken into a tropical depression as it travels further inland. Until then, however, Texans are preparing for expected flash flooding and rip currents along the coast and dangerous winds close to 180 kilometers an hour. Now, since forming last week and becoming the Atlantic's earliest Category 5 hurricane on record, Beryl has killed at least 11 people as it devastated communities in its path. Iran elects a new president. Coming up. The man who takes the helm after the tragic death of the former leader. What will this mean for relations with the West?
Are you more frail?
No.
U.S. President Joe Biden sitting down for an exclusive one-on-one interview last night with ABC News. Biden telling host George Stephanopoulos over and over that his disastrous debate performance last month was a one-time flub, or, in Biden's words, a bad night. The president insisting he's the only one who can prevent a victory by Trump, and the only one able to steer the American economy in the right direction. This despite those lingering questions about his health.
But you're behind now in the popular vote.
I don't buy that.
Is it worth the risk?
I don't think anybody's more qualified to be president or win this race than me.
The New York Times, the Washington Post, and other prominent media outlets have called on Biden to step aside. But so far, no prominent Democrat has come out to urge Biden to throw in the towel. And just a couple of days after the Labour Party's landslide election victory in the UK, new Prime Minister Keir Starmer is getting straight to business with his new cabinet.
And now we hold our first cabinet meeting. So I welcome you to it. We have a huge amount of work to do. So now we get on with our work.
And it didn't take long for his new government to make drastic policy changes either. Today, Starmer announced they have effectively scrapped plans to deport arriving asylum seekers to Rwanda, a controversial policy championed by his conservative predecessors. And later next week, Starmer will travel to Washington to meet allies, including Prime Minister Trudeau, for NATO's 75th anniversary summit. There's a new leader in the Islamic Republic of Iran to tell you about tonight. Masoud Pezeshkian is taking the helm after the death of the last president in a helicopter crash back in May. Now, Dr. Pezeshkian is a heart surgeon. He wants to extend an olive branch to the West, and he wants to ease enforcement of Iran's sexist headscarf law. But as David Akin tells us, many Iranians, including many Iranian Canadians, are skeptical of his ability to do all that, given that it's the supreme leader who rules the roost in Iran.
Masoud Pezeshkian campaigned with a simple slogan: I am a doctor, I will save citizens. It worked. Pezeshkian, a 69-year-old cardiac surgeon who positioned himself as a relative moderate, beat a hardline rival, Saeed Jalili. The election was closely watched in Canada, especially by those who lost family members when Iran shot down a Ukrainian Airlines jet in 2020. That group met Saturday afternoon, and afterwards a spokesperson said they had little expectations the new president would bring about change.
As long as this regime is in power, there is no real reform can happen.
Canada's position is that elections in Iran are neither free nor fair, and as a result, many Iranians simply abstain. And sure enough, voter turnout was low, at just 50%.
This has been the lowest participation in the election throughout the 45 years history of regime in Iran. So this regime is really in a downfall.
Improving the economy appeared to be the top issue for those who did vote. But Iran's economy cannot change without the lifting of sanctions. And that will require Iran to agree to a new deal to limit its nuclear program and to stop funding foreign militias like Hezbollah or the Houthis in Yemen. Pezeshkian campaigned on trying to improve relations with the West, but that may be tough because the real authority in Iran rests with the hardline Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei and the Iranian National Guard.
He will hope he can engage the rest of the regime in a dialogue. But one thing Pezeshkian has done, maybe cleverly, is to say from the beginning of him entering this race that he will stay within the frameworks as they are set by the Supreme Leader.
Pezeshkian said he is hopeful he can relax rules that require a woman to wear a hijab in public, but even that may run into opposition from conservative clerics. Acknowledging the headwinds he will face, Pezeshkian on Saturday urged Iranians to stick with his program, quote, on the difficult road ahead. David Akin, Global News, Ottawa.
And there are some new indications this weekend of a possible peace plan for Gaza, though any official deal is still very much an aspiration. A Hamas negotiator tonight saying the militant group supports a U.S.-backed plan for a phased ceasefire. The Associated Press also reporting Hamas is willing to drop its demand that Israel completely end the war before any deal is signed. Now, in Gaza, signs of that war ending, however, anytime soon, still elusive at best. The school building turned shelter, the target of an Israeli strike that killed at least 16 people, wounding 50 others. Now, Israel insists it does not target civilians, but says it was targeting Hamas militants allegedly operating out of the building. Ahead, a dry summer. Well, not exactly. The impact of a province-wide strike at Ontario's liquor stores. Thousands of workers for the Liquor Control Board of Ontario, or LCBO, remain on the picket lines on day 2 of a strike that has shuttered all of the province-run liquor stores. Now, this follows months of unsuccessful contract negotiations between the union and management, but also concerns over Premier Doug Ford's plans to increase alcohol accessibility across Ontario. Lexi Benedict looks at the job action's impact so far.
It's day 2 of a dry summer in Ontario. After 9,000 LCBO workers walked off the job following unsuccessful negotiations between the union and the province, prompting closures at province-owned liquor stores.
What this strike is about the privatization of alcohol sales in such a way that it strips revenue out of public health care and education.
The union says LCBO brings in about $2.5 billion for healthcare, education, and infrastructure, and the privatization will strip that away.
There are other models that can be considered besides siphoning off money, public runs, and putting it into corporate pockets. That's what we'd like to talk about over the coming days.
At a rally in downtown Toronto, leader of Ontario's opposition, Merritt Stiles, pointing fingers at the Ford government.
He's nowhere, and I think that's really unfortunate because this is on him, right? And I think, while Doug Ford is, at the cottage or wherever he is this weekend, hard-working Ontarians are working every day.
The province has not yet commented on the strike. Consumers today say they sympathize with the workers and their right to strike. But as for finding booze, they'll manage finding other options.
Liquor is liquor is liquor. We'll find it somewhere.
Workers, they have their own rights. But second, it's a summertime. We really needed them. Please come by. God bless you guys.
I am starting to look at different, what grocery stores have to offer that maybe I haven't looked at before or really paid attention to.
On Friday, the LCBO said they will be reopening 5 different retail locations next week to allow bar and restaurant owners to stock up amid the strike. But workers here on the picket line say they're here rain or shine and are just hoping that a deal can be reached soon. Lexi Benedict, Global News.
Next, how this scientist turned her passion of kayaking into a way to help countries improve the health of their rivers. We'll be right back.
Je crois qu'ils vont l'arrêter. Regardez, il y a Charles et Margot qui l'attendent. Ah oui!
Well, who would have thought a little peck on the cheek would draw the ire of officials at one of the world's premier cycling events? But that's exactly what happened. Cyclist Julien Bernard being disciplined by the governing body of the Tour de France for engaging in, quote, unseemly or inappropriate behavior during the race and causing damage to the image of the sport. He was fined the equivalent of $250 for the infraction. Well, so much for France's joie de vivre, huh? All right, not everyone is lucky enough to combine their hobbies right into their professional life on a daily basis. That hasn't been a problem for one Canadian scientist. She is an avid kayaker and an expert in studying fast-flowing rivers, which are a bellwether for the health of our environment and our planet. Redmond Shannon on how a life on the water is having a lasting impact.
There were some actual rapids on this river.
Rivers dominate Jess Druzhko's life, from her passion for kayaking to understanding how those waters shape the land and how we shape those waters.
Solo on the river with a sensor attached to my boat. I'm sorry, Mom, but I did it for science.
Drushko grew up on the Ottawa River before her graduate studies took her to Switzerland.
I wanted to combine my passion of rivers, of kayaking, and also do something for the rivers, but I wasn't sure what that would be.
Her scientist friends suggested she develop an efficient way to better understand what's happening in our rivers. And so the Riverkin sensors were born out of her PhD, much of the research kayak reliant.
So in addition to water level, temperature, the last part that we're measuring is turbidity, or the amount of fine sediment, debris that are suspended in the water.
Currently, 8 sensors are deployed in Swiss rivers. Drushko's long-term plan is that thousands and then millions will upload results using mobile networks around the world. The real-time data could be used by farmers and industries to fulfill their green obligations, and by government agencies to detect pollution and build data models to predict floods and droughts.
Partnering also with citizens that would want to then install the sensor in their backyard, or if they have a dock somewhere along a river or somewhere in Montreal, and then do profit sharing.
Drushko says she's recently been so inundated with the work of understanding rivers, she's hardly had time to paddle on them. Redmond Shannon, Global News, London.
And that is Global National for this Saturday night. I'm Anthony Robart. Tonight's Your Canada is this purple starfish in White Rock, British Columbia. Of course, we love seeing Your Canada. Please keep emailing your photos to viewers@globalnational.com. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you'll join us again tomorrow. Have a great night.